r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Gray, Building 679. I was part of a reality survival-based TV show. The footage will never air. Part 2. Kelly came over again tonight. I tried to share what I wrote, but she wasn't interested. Usually, her visits are for a singular purpose only. We used to date in high school, and I think that's why I still have some appeal for her, that first love thing, that never fully gets out of your system. She likes to pull at my flabby skin. My body after years of neglect has become almost womanly in its curves, my thighs as shapely as a Botticelli painting. Before she leaves to go home to her husband, she likes to tell me that this will be the last time and that she's disgusted with herself. She said the same thing a few days ago too. As she says it though, I think of Clara as if she ever meant something to me. As if I ever meant anything to her. I hear a car door close, and the engine of her Mercedes as she drives away. I turn my head to look out the window. A curtain of bushes meets my gaze, the branches placed in such a way as if it's smiling back at me. We were officially on month 2 of production, exactly 32 days in, when Mark got to work on what he liked to call the bones of the show. With 4 participants remaining and 4 weeks until the next check-in, he along with the 2 editors scrolled through hours and hours of what we salvaged from the GoPros and began crafting a storyline. I hung back as they cherry-picked minutes of video, narrowing in on each person, packaging them into a digestible product. Mark considered Jimmy to be the hero and was certain he would be the last man standing, the ultimate winner. Jimmy was amicable with the movie star smile and filmed well. He had a good attitude, at least from what he showed on the camera. "It's been real chilly here lately," Jimmy said, looking into the GoPro. His shirt was off, showing several intricate tattoos. "So I decided to make a sauna." Zooming in, he displayed his invention, a small teepee, with charcoaled logs in the center. Just like a spa. Stripping off his pants, now fully naked. "Make sure to edit this out, fellows," he said before heading inside the structure. "Goddamn. I love this kid," Mark said smiling. Nate on the other hand was perfect to hate. Even though 95% of his video was the same as the other contestants, fishing, gathering firewood, sleeping, there were moments when he had almost a caustic attitude towards nature. "I fucking hate it here," he said, his voice rambling out from the computer. "But I'm going to make this place my bitch. Get ready baby, because Nate DeWitt is in the motherfucking house." We went on to watch him almost burn down his shelter trying to catch a rat. "We got our villain, boys," Mark said, clapping his hands together. Peter was considered to be the most skilled among the participants. He would speak into the camera as a teacher would, instructing on how to make snares or a fire. His crowning accomplishment was creating an elaborate system to collect rainwater. Rewatching the footage, I began to notice a slight nervousness about Peter. It was subtle. He would be doing something, and then look in a different direction, pausing for several moments. What it was, hidden from view. Besides Clara mentioning the lights, which Mark chalked up to a passing boat, her footage was relatively boring. Mark viewed her storyline as simply being a mom and figured she would be the next to leave. Day 60 came just on the heels of Halloween, and we loaded into the boat again, making our way out to the islands. Mark was excited to get his hands on more video, but his smile quickly disappeared as we came upon Clara's sight. Her emaciated frame stood in the distance, prying away her head from her body. She gave a small wave. She wasn't tapping. I examined her as best I could, trying to determine if she was all right. Her stone face gave nothing away. Our boat came upon Peter and Nate's drop-offs, and just like Clara's, we grabbed the tapes, leaving more batteries and SD cards for the GoPros. Jimmy was our last stop, and as we docked I could hear Mark swearing. Looking up, Jimmy was there, his backpack ready. "God damn it," Mark said to me. "Hi Jimmy," Jesse said, pulling out the camera, as he did with Leanne. "Hey guys," Jimmy said unsteadily, coming into the boat. "You know, I had my money on you to win, kid," Mark said, stroking his stubbled chin. "I thought you had it in you. So, why did you decide to tap?" Jesse pressed on with his questions. Letting out a nervous chuckle, Jimmy pushed his knees together. "I don't know. I just got lonely out here." We disembarked and went to collect the remaining equipment and video. Jimmy's log cabin stood proudly in front of us. I could barely manage IKEA furniture and found myself in awe. As we approached, my eyes went to the ground. Inhaling sharply, I realized that hundreds of dirt-shaped mounds the size of eggs were poking out as if the earth were covered in boils. "Jesse!" I called out, and he came running towards me. "What the hell is that?" I pointed to the ground. "I bet it's some moles, or maybe voles," "Those little assholes destroyed my garden last year," he said unconcerned. We got back into Blue Harbor and unloaded the equipment. Mark was in a foul mood, forcing Jesse to drive to Portland to get drunk. I hung back with Jimmy, who went quietly to his room, eager for his flight back to LA tomorrow. I was desperate to look at the video we collected but went to check in on him. Knocking on his door, I poked my head in. "You want to go outside and have a beer? There's a fire pit I can turn on." Jimmy was sitting on his bed staring ahead into space. His beard had grown, coming down almost to his collarbone. "It's a bit cold out," he said flatly. "Living room then?" He agreed to join me and we sprawled out on two of the large oversized couches. We drank our way through a six-pack, Jimmy eventually becoming more talkative as the night progressed. "I thought that cabin you made was incredible," I said in between sips. "I was trying to figure out what those round things were on the ground though." Jesse thought it was voles, and I was thinking to myself, what the hell are voles? I let out a giggle. "Voles." There was a long pause as Jimmy looked down the bottle of his beer, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. "I woke up one morning and it was like that, just showed up out of nowhere. Well, it scared the shit out of me." I felt tipsy by that point and let out a laugh. "You had ground pimples and Leanne had blood roots." "That wasn't all," Jimmy said, his tone serious, and I went silent. At night I started to hear things. He bit his lip. It sounded like bits of conversation, just fragments, but different voices. It's like what you would hear if you walking through a busy street. "Did you hear what they were saying?" Jimmy shook his head. "It was never clear. It sounded like someone speaking far away, but also just outside my cabin. I thought I was going insane, but then when those ball things showed up, I knew it was time to get out of there." He put down the beer. "I know Mark's a dick, but please don't make me look crazy on TV if you can." After Jimmy left the next morning, I went to the computer to look at the video we had just collected from the participants. I popped in Jimmy's SD card, forwarding through several days, till I found what I was looking for. Jimmy was in his cabin. It was evening by the look of it. The camera was pointed towards him, as he lay down in his sleeping bag. "Do you hear that?" he said, his voice trembling. I turned up the volume as high as it would go. I could hear a fire crackling, the sound of waves in the distance, but not the voices that he had described to me the night before. Things got progressively worse as I scrolled forward. He started screaming at the voices he thought he heard, barking out into the night. Then a few days later he resorted to begging, pleading for them to stop. The night before we came he was huddled in a fetal position, his eyes covered and whimpering. I listened as closely as I could but the audio revealed nothing. I went on to Nate's GoPro card, stopping when I saw he was standing in front of his camera, a darkened expression on his face. "Look at this." Twisting the camera angle, focusing on the background, I almost fell off my seat. There was someone there with him. A slim black figure, its eyes bore into me, as I held my breath. "I kid you not, I almost shit my pants this morning when I saw this," Nate said, picking up the camera. He began walking towards the figure. As he got closer, I began to see what I had originally thought was a body, was two twisted tree trunks. The face was composed of branches, that looked so realistic, resembling human features, but up close, were just pieces of wood and bark. "It's nothing," said Nate, chuckling to the camera. "Just mind tricks. There's a lot of that out here." I was glad when I reviewed Peter's video that nothing seemed out of the ordinary, though he continued to be a little jumpy. Last was Clara's SD card, and I felt a wave of panic, saying a small prayer that nothing would be abnormal. My hopes were dashed, as the video went to the water, and I knew immediately what I was looking at, the same glittering lights she had described last time. Orb-shaped balls skated along the surface a distance from shore. "I want to say thank you to my boys, for sending this to me. Thank you nature for this beauty," said Claire, calmly. "But I don't need it anymore, you can go. Please go." The camera again went to the lights. "Please go," she repeated, and I could hear her crying as the frame shook in her hands. "Please go, please go, please go." There was a loud sob that made my heart feel like it was cracking. The next night Clara's face filled the screen, then turning, went back to the lights on the water. They were larger than before. She smacked her lips. "I know that this, whatever it is well, it's not good. It's not from my sons, that's for damn sure. It's not a good gift. It's a gift of darkness." She scowled, turning off the GoPro. It was a few days later when Clara decided to turn on her camera again, the last time she filmed before the pickup. It was during the day, her face tinged with rose gold light, the golden hour. She was standing outside her shelter, the cave she had found, her arms crossed against her now shrunken body. "I've decided I need to find another shelter," she said to the camera. The frame shifted, focusing on the inside of the cave wall, and squinting I could see the outline of two round indents side by side, the rock sloping downwards towards what looked like into a curve then circling inwards again to create a gaping opening. Water droplets hung at the top of the crevice, delicate little triangles, like jagged teeth. My eyes adjusted as my brain began to realize what it was. Identifying what Clara was seeing, it looked like a giant skull in the rock. I think I might be going insane. This," she said, focusing again on the rock monstrosity in the cave, "wasn't there before. Or maybe I just didn't see it before? I don't know." She sat down on the rocks outside her cave, the stones glistened. From the viewpoint of the camera, it looked like the mouth of the giant rock-shaped skull in back of her was getting ready to swallow her whole. It was so monstrous and terrible, I felt myself look away as if it might actually happen. "I just want to go home." Placing her head in her hands, Clara started crying. The video ended. Mark and Jesse came home in the late afternoon, still buzzed, and reeking of whiskey and body odor. I told them what Jimmy had told me last night, about the voices, and brought them over to the computer. Screenshots of the figure Nate had seen in the skull in Clara's cave were side by side on the screen. "Oh, it took me a second but now I see it," said Jesse, squinting. "I don't see shit." Mark burped. There was a knock at the door. "Hang on," he said, walking over, opening the door a few inches. "Trick or treat," said three small voices in unison. "Halloween. Right. Chris, do you have a few bucks on you?" I came over, pulling out my wallet and dropping a single in each of the kids' pails. "Trust me, I know it's not candy, but you'll learn to appreciate this a lot more," Mark said, grinning. "What are these costumes supposed to be?" "I'm a mummy," said a voice muffled by toilet paper. "And she's a princess." He pointed the youngest of the three, a small girl with a crown on her head. The third kid was dressed in black, with what looked like balloons tapped on it. "And I'm a Wella." "Very cool," said Mark, closing the door, and waving the kids off. When they were gone he turned towards me. "All right, let's turn off the porch light and pretend like nobody's home." When we got back to the editing room, Jesse was sitting at the computer continuing to study the images. "Oh, I see it from back here," Mark said as he entered. "What's that thing called, when people see human characteristics in random objects?" Jesse asked. "Pareidolia." Mark took a seat, diverting his attention to something on his phone. "Don't you think it's weird that both Clara and Nate are seeing them?" I asked. Mark shrugged. "I mean, what else have they got to do out there? I'm surprised they're not seeing little green fairies bopping around at this point. Besides, Peter is fine, right?" I tried to discuss the matter further, but Mark wasn't having it. He figured that this would all be over soon, and was already starting to think about his next show. We spent the next 10 days continuing to edit the videos. It was getting cold now, it felt like it might snow any day. I wondered how the participants were doing and if Clara had been able to find or make a new shelter yet. We were about halfway through October when Jesse screamed at us one morning to come downstairs. Springing out of bed, I barreled down to see the television turned on. A busty blonde reporter sat behind a desk. There in the right-hand corner was a picture of Peter, his face shrunken and ragged. The reporter cleared her throat. "The Coast Guard rescued a man today near the Bay of Foray. The man was found on what reports say looks like a homemade raft made of tree trunks and rope. So far there is no further information on where the man came from, or of his identity. He has been transferred to Portland General Hospital and remains in critical condition." I looked at Jesse, thinking what I know now to be true with absolute certainty. Peter left a shelter, fire, and water, venturing into the cold Atlantic, 100 miles from shore, an almost certain death. Whatever he fled on the island was worse than that.